Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the virtual breakfast sessions. I'm Larry Sashin, and today we have an interesting person who he and his industry have changed the dynamic on grease, fryer grease. But before we do that, let's thank the people who are paying our bills. Ed Flanagan and the Era Group, listen, if you're tired of paying your employee taxes and you think you'd like a way to cut that down, and who doesn't? Uh, Look to Ed Flanagan and his cafeteria IRS sanction plan, number 125, and those that will help you claw back some of that money that you're paying the IRS and help give your people an extra benefit. So, if you're interested, give Ed Flanagan and the Era Group a call. Plus, listen, we started a new series at the virtual breakfast session called the Culinary Education Leaders. We are interviewing the schools that are feeding through the next wave of culinary leaders. So, if you've gone to culinary school, if you are interested in going to culinary school, listen to culinary education leaders on totalfood.com/VBS, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and in YouTube. So here we go. Back to the show. Uh, there's a a ton of money in the grease that you've been disposing with. We don't want to know how, but to talk about that, let's talk about the biofuel opportunity. Artem, before we do that, why don't we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Artem Kamalov from Easy Grease. We're one of the largest independently owned used cooking oil collection companies on the East Coast. At the moment, we're servicing about 10 states and um, almost at the number of 9,000. I think we're at, last time we checked, like 8,500, clients, and different restaurants and food service businesses that we service, and we're really proud of what we offer to the industry, and looking forward to this conversation, just giving some insight on things from our point of view.
Okay. Fred, say hi.
Good morning. I'm Fred Klashmn, Total Food Service. Always been kind of fascinated by the role of oil in our industry, especially as we look at more electric kitchens as well. What's going to happen and how this is going to evolve.
Okay, so back to our show. Liquid gold in the deep fryer, tapping the $1 billion biofuel opportunity. Listen, uh, things weren't always this smooth and beneficial to both the restaurateur and the environment. Artem, before we go into what you do, please enlighten us on two things. Number one, the biofuel industry and some of the things people used to do to get rid of the oil in the deep fryer.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think about just a few decades ago. There, we didn't have this infrastructure we have now. Um, I still hear stories to this day of, oh, this is how we used to get rid of oil, and we would just dump it here and dump it there. Um, and not every area or like region had the resources, meaning, like, was there even a collector in my city, in my town, and people were either, putting it in jugs and just kind of throwing it into the trash, and I was going to the landfill, or it was getting dumped out back by in the woods, or it was going down drains. So, you know, you started getting people were becoming more knowledgeable that maybe this shouldn't go down the sewers. And, cities and municipalities started kind of regulating it. So you even see it nowadays, like, you can't open up a restaurant. You won't pass your health inspection if you don't have a vendor ready, or a container like actually out back. So now it's the norm, but before, I mean, it went through different progressions. And, the last decade, what the big change was is people started getting paid for it. The shift of oh, I have to pay a company, just like you would pay a trash company or a recycling company for cardboards. You pay them to get rid of the trash. And then there was this change where it's like, okay, this is more valuable than just trash. And that's, an interesting shift that happened.
Okay. So let's talk about the biofuel industry itself. Where does this oil go?
So it's considered renewable energy. So there's a couple different like end products it becomes. So it could be biodiesel, which is the common one. And a lot of people, I mean, anyone who has a diesel truck, if you ever notice at the gas station, you'll see a little sign that says, this is blended 5% biodiesel. And that byproduct of the biodiesel is actually used cooking oil and other grease products. But used cooking oil is like the largest low carbon footprint. So it's a big the biodiesel refineries love that product. So biodiesel is one of them, renewable diesel, and then now the big thing is sustainable aviation fuel. And those kind of fall under that same category of renewable fuels, biofuels. And I mean, they're powering buses, they're powering big ships, maritime ships. They're obviously powering some planes now too. So I mean, any diesel engine could use biodiesel. So they're finding different uses for it. There's a myth that, oh, people use it for soap, but that's not really a thing. Animal feed is another big I guess industry that it goes to. So they use it to feed pigs and chickens. But for the most part, biofuel is really where I guess the big portion of oil around our country and around the world is going towards.
The thought of jet
Oh, all right,
fuel.
so hold on. So right away, there's an opportunity for a restaurateur who may not have understood this before. This is a great way to create a green or sustainable agenda, for
Yeah,
somebody who really has not been uh, tapped into this at all. It's a great
yeah,
starting.
yeah. I mean, you see bigger like brands and companies, they have, their environmental like sustainability program that they release. And I feel like independent restaurants should market that too, especially, yes, you can change the straws to paper and get rid of some plastics, but I feel like you're already recycling the oil.
Hmm.
Why not tell your customers a lot? I think nowadays, the age we're in now, people do care about sustainability. Like we care about the earth. So why not market it, share it?
And if I recycle my oil, it doesn't cost me more, which certain disposables might do, et cetera. So
Yeah,
you got to look at where on the P&L this thing sits as well.
yeah, for sure.
Artem, you and I had a conversation about the oil and what it could bring to the restaurateur, the cafeteria owner, whatever. Um, it's quite a swing from paying somebody to get paid. Now, they're not going to retire on getting rid of their fryer oil, but it adds to the bottom line. We were talking about different types of restaurants and what they can be actually bringing back into their company. Everybody's got a fryer with one, to make their French fries. But if you look deeper, what are some of the restaurant tours that your types of restaurateurs that you're dealing with? We mentioned the seafood fry stores, restaurants. I imagine there's quite a savings there for them.
Yeah, for, large producers of oil, I mean, you're talking about you have multiple fryers, you're changing out that oil very often, to keep the oil fresh and just because you're using it all day. I think, those type of um, restaurants really, they're the ones seeing the bigger checks. Obviously, if you have a concession stand or a small little cafe and you just fry up a couple items, you might not see those rebates as much as someone who does a lot of oil, but it's still something, right? It's helping pay for maybe that bill goes to paying for the oil or going to
Hmm.
pay for another utility. So it's still something. Um, and it varies. I mean, I've seen some restaurants getting hundreds of dollars a month. I've seen some restaurants maybe getting a small check of 50. And I think it's just depends on the volume. how many fryers, and we calculate it based on how many fryers you have and how often you change it, or how many of those oil jugs you're using a week.
Okay. So talk
So,
about your typical user.
um, I mean, now I feel like every restaurant has fryers in it. It's very common to, fry at least French fries on the menu. I mean, Mediterranean food, you're frying falafel. Everyone has something to fry. Mexican cuisine fries pitas. So everyone has fryers. But I mean, we work with clients all different types, and not even just kind of restaurants. We're talking about ghost kitchens, um, food manufacturers. Everyone kind of benefits from having to get their oil, or get rid of their oil somehow. So, and what there's so many different customized, like, how do you get rid of that oil, right? After it leaves the fryer, it has to be stored somewhere.
Mhm.
And whether it's the transfer process of getting it to that storage, that could also vary too. So let's say you have a big operation that's frying a lot of food, and you don't want your employees carrying those buckets out. Maybe a customized, like, automation system might be really, beneficial for you. And I think it's just trying to find the vendor that can provide all those different solutions. But because this has been going on for a while, and there's so many different companies, publicly traded companies, and there's so much different equipment out there now, and technologies, whether it's for filtering your oil or for transferring your oil, the resources are there. And there's actually some really, really helpful. I mean, you even have AI automation to tell you how full your container is, and there's some interesting things out there.
So walk through what best practices could or should look like. You've got 9,000, almost 9,000 customers. The guys and gals that are getting it right. What does that look like?
Um, so I'm gonna talk for like the standard restaurant, right? We have over 9,000 clients. We have all this data on
Yep.
the typical client. Typical client, four fryers, change it out two, three times a week. They tend to have big container out back. So usually by the garbage corral area. And what they essentially do is, once that oil, the shift is over, the oil kind of cools down. It's a little bit safer to now clean out. So some people do it in the morning shift, some people
And
do it in
how
the
do they
evening.
and how do they know when to change? For those who don't know, how do they know when to change oil? Is there a number of miles, quote unquote? Is there a number of fry baskets?
You know,
What's
everyone
the number?
has everyone has their own, way, I guess, of identifying it, whether it's by the color. You
Yep.
have FFA tests, which is like fatty acidity levels, and there's little test kits you can do to get it out. Some people just have a cycle in mind, like, okay, we're doing it after 2 days, after 3 days.
Hmm.
So, you know, we don't, that's not our side of the business to
No,
tell
I
anyone how
understand.
long.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but it varies. So I think we see some people doing it once a week because they don't use the fryers as much. But it's 3 days. You're gonna have a lot better taste in that food if you're switching it out often.
Right.
And then back to
And again, Friday night and Saturday night obviously become peak periods. So Saturday night to Sunday becomes a key disposable.
yeah, and that's where we definitely see a lot of the changes being done is on the Fridays to prepare for
Yeah.
the weekend. So um, essentially just cooling it down, and then you're just transferring it. So old school ways, buckets and pan, and these big pots, and you're just carrying it out back, safely. It definitely makes it safer and more efficient if you wait till it cools down. And then you're just pouring it into that container. Those
And do you
containers,
guys provide those pots, or is that another?
usually the restaurants have these,
Okay.
because again, a chef is going to have their method, like their preferred, like, this is how we operate. This is what I'm used to,
Right.
whether it's the best thing, but that's just what they're used to, right? We're creatures of our own patterns. But you also have caddies and shuttles that make it a little bit easier. But again, not everyone has the space to keep these things around. You have these mobile caddies that also work as filters. Those could
Mhm.
be used. And there's a lot of options for sure.
And there's always in the background there's a insurance considerations as well. I mean, you're living in a workman's comp type of litigation type of world. You got to get this right.
Yeah, yeah. But the standard is, we just empty out the fryers, drain them
Yep.
out, and then carry it out back and dump it. It is sometimes people want to automate stuff and they don't realize that there's pros and cons to it, right? When you're using equipment, that equipment breaks, you know? And now that employee that's used to carrying it, automatic or transferring it automatically doesn't know how to do it manually
Got it.
or doesn't want to.
Now, do you initially do training for these people? You're bringing in a new system to some of them when they hire you. Is there a preferred way you'd like it? Is there a way you train people to handle this procedure?
I think with systems, when you have certain equipment, yes, there's definitely some training there just to get familiar with it and be able to troubleshoot some situations. But usually with the standard, I'm talking about like 85%, almost 90% of restaurants, there's really no education in how do you carry out the oil out there. I think it's more on the education of the storage tank, like keeping the lid closed, right? Because if you leave it open, you're attracting pests, you're bringing in rainwater. And I always and a lot of our like team always suggests like just take your time with pouring. I think the big issue is people tend to just pour it really quickly just to get the job done, and that's when you see that spill all over the tank, and then it goes on the floor, and that becomes a problem. So I think it's just taking your time and whatever process you have, not rushing it. So one to avoid any mishaps and safety issues, but also just to keep it clean. Why rush, make a mistake, and then have it
Mhm.
to clean that mess up?
So what I hear underneath that is there's got to be some proper training as you bring somebody in to do this.
Yeah. But a lot of people are familiar with these containers. So they're like, oh,
Yep.
I got it. Don't worry. Just deliver it and you're good to go. And then other
Yep.
people need, your first time opening up a restaurant. This is new territory you've never, been with. And having someone, on the phone explaining things to you before preparing, like this is what to expect. And then when the delivery gets out there, the driver and delivers the container and giving you a little bit of an education, even in placement, I think what some people they think, okay, just put the container there, but you have to think about it in a sense of where is the best place to put the container? What if your garbage corral area is very
Hmm.
far away? Do you really want your employees carrying that oil, even if it's in a shuttle, all the way, on the other side of the plaza or downstairs, right? So I think when we are delivering that equipment, it's also placing it somewhere that makes sense for us as the recycler that needs to pump out, but also for their staff on how to, dispose of it, transfer it into that storage. So it does require some customization and personalization.
Mm.
This industry's seen a lot of change in terms of the types of oils. Um, Canola oil turned into sunflower oil, turning into avocado oil, turning into use of beef tallow. I mean, there's just all kind. What do you see in terms of the types of usage that's going on, and how does that impact the role that you guys play from a
And
disposal
let me
standpoint?
add to this. Let me add to this. It does if you use mixed oils, that one fryer has tallow, the other fryer has sunflower oil. Does it make a difference when you put it in the same container?
Definitely does. Definitely does. You know, I'm sure any restaurant knows the changes that have, especially in prices with oils. Oil is not cheap, and some people like to, choose ones that fit their cuisine and their menu. Um, there's definitely more of a trend now with beef tallow, those type of food. And again, let's say you're a donut place. You're also, you also have oil, but maybe it's a thicker amount. And I think the big issue sometimes is the not communicating with the vendor, your, oil recycler, what product you're using, or even updating them when you decide to change some menu items and, introduce tallow into your menu, and it's not informing because you need special equipment. Tallow, the second, I mean, when you throw it into the fryer, it's a thick, block, and then you heat it up, it liquefies. And then when you're recycling it, it's still liquid and you pour it into that container. But once it goes in that container, it's no longer, there's no heat source to it. So it's just getting solid. Now it becomes an issue because you need special pumps for it. You need to be able to heat it up. And depending on where you are in the region, in the country, that majority of the year it's frozen, So I think it's just communication because there's special equipment required for handling tallow. And not every vendor, you're going to limit yourself on what vendors you can work with and what equipment. So it's definitely something to think about and
I'm
educate
assuming Easy
yourself.
Breeze can handle tallow.
We in some regions we also pick and choose, right?
Okay.
So and I think we have to give the restaurant when they decide, hey, we're using tallow. Do you service this? And then we have to figure out, can you have a heating tank at your site?
Hmm.
Does your landlord even allow it? Is it something internal you can put inside? Do you have the space to put it in? So it's just case by case, but we definitely offer it. It just, you have to check with our team so we can find the best solution for you.
So if you use a vegetable oil and beef tallow separately, you need separate tanks.
Not necessarily, right? In our cases, we do it together, and we just try to provide a tank that can be heated up. But again, it's better to inform us or any vendor you're working with. Ask them, hey, I'm using this tallow. Can I put it in together? Because then you might need a special truck that has a heating unit on it. It's a little complicated.
Well, it's one of those things you'll find out during the first pickup if they don't tell you. And then
Yeah,
it's all retrofitted, and I'm sure it costs more money at that point.
yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
So, um, have we missed anything in your industry that you'd like people to know?
Um, I mean, there's a lot of myths. One of the big myths is, oh, the biofuel industry is, these collectors are making a lot of money collecting the oil. I mean, it's a market, right? And there's multiple players in the market. Like, all used cooking oil collectors are doing is recycling that oil, right? Pumping it out, vacuuming it, and we're cleaning it up to sell to a biodiesel, refinery. And they have their process that they need to do in order to create it into a renewable energy. So, and I think when it's choosing the vendor that you want for your restaurant, don't just go off of, okay, this person's offering me the highest rebate. I think there's hidden fees sometimes involved, a big thing that most people don't realize in their contract because they just see the dollar sign. Oh, someone's offering me, $1 per gallon, but they don't realize that there's something we call moisture impurities, and that's when the oil that you're taking out of your fryer is not pure oil anymore. There's food particles in it. There's moisture in it. A lot of restaurants sometimes clean out their fryer as well with water or soapy water, and also tend to put that in. So you're not going to get pure oil. So average in the industry, you're seeing anywhere from 25 to 30% impurities. And this is a test done, not even just by our company and our eight, like 9,000 clients. It's also other companies. So that's kind of the average. But you'll see someone say, oh, we'll offer you this much money, but your impurities are 50%. So you have to be careful what you're signing into. I think also be careful not signing a contract that locks you in. Um, as many times restaurants have gone into lawsuits because they chose, I don't want to work with this vendor anymore because they're not picking up the oil. I have nowhere to put my oil. So
Mhm.
I want to work with someone else. well, guess what? They're locked into a contract and they're trying to get out of that contract and they're getting lawsuits. And it's happened. You can, I'm sure anyone could Google it and they'll see, oh, wow, like restaurants could get sued. As a restaurant owner, I can get sued for, switching out my vendor. So I think picking the right company is very, very important. And I'm not here saying like go with Easy Grease. I think do your research and don't just AI and ask for AI. Like talk and take the time to find out, is this the best vendor for me? And if they mark off all those boxes, are they transparent? Is the price good? Are they in my area often? Do they provide me
Mhm.
the right equipment? And is there flexibility in that contract? They mark all that off, then there you go. But I think what a lot of restaurant owners find out later on is, well, that vendor that I picked is not good. And now I'm running into issues with the health department. The health department will write you up if the container's dirty. If the container's full, you will, get a violation. And people don't realize that. So, you know, um,
So you're
uh,
responsible for your vendor,
yeah. So picking the right
right?
one is
Yep.
important. So I think it's
Okay.
just take the time to find the right one, and it will save you so much headaches down the line. And you don't have to make those phone calls
No.
and and the worst thing is it's Friday night, it's 3-day weekend, you're busy and you have nowhere to put that oil. Now you have buckets sitting out back and the staff is complaining and stressing out. Like that's you don't want to be in those situations. So
Okay. All
So
right.
hold on one sec.
One
So
last question, Fred.
one thing I'm curious about. So from a pure, when you vet somebody, if you have four fryers going 7 days a week, should there be a single pickup every week? Should it be every other week? In other words, what are some of the right questions or answers that you're looking for from that potential vendor?
So what we do is we calculate how much oil is actually going to be produced. Then we have to figure out the size of storage that you're capable in the back of the house. Can you fit 500 gallons of storage, or can you only fit 200? And then the window, the reoccurring schedule of pickups depends on that. So, you never want to get to 80%. That's cutting it too close. So,
Right.
it's just figuring out how much space do you have, how much volume you produce, and then work that schedule around.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times even though you might have a 2-week schedule, if a driver is in that area, they're just going to come. I'm already in that area on that street. I'm just going to come and pick up that oil. So.
Hmm.
Mm. Do you have a Q&A on your website?
Yeah, there's we have different pages on equipment, on recite like the actual collection side, and in there you can see FAQs on that specific topic. Also, you call us, we're picking up. And if we do, even if after hours, we'll end up calling back, and then we can actually walk through the different scenarios. We can share pictures and work out what's the best solution for you.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's that time of the show that time is our enemy. So, but before we say our goodbyes and leave that last bit of information people should know. Once again, I'd like to thank Ed Flanagan and the Era Group. Listen, if you receive boxes over boxes over boxes coming out of that delivery truck and you just have time to count the boxes and look at your invoice and it's 10 boxes or 15 boxes and the invoice says 10 boxes or 15 boxes and you throw it into your inventory, you're missing out because you don't know if you're getting charged the price you agreed to. You don't know what's in those boxes. So if you're curious and you think the money is flying out of the window faster than it should be, call Ed Flanagan in the Error Group. Listen, there people will sift through your invoices, sift through your contracts, and make sure you're getting exactly what you promised and at that price. So, Ed Flanagan in the Error Group. Listen, Artem, I never thought I could sit and listen to an hour at a half hour of Greece. without John Travolta singing. I mean, it was a great show. I really appreciate you being here. But before we go, what I'd like you to do is first tell everybody where they could find your website. What is your URL?
It's Easy Grease with a Z. So EAZY, Grease, GREASE.com. And a lot of resources are there. You can fill out the form and someone will reach out to you. You can call us directly and, we'll find the best solution for you.
All right. And give those people that one bit of information that you want them to keep on their way wherever they're going from now on.
I think it's, kind of just going back to picking the right person will save a lot. And don't just look for the dollar signs. Pick someone with permits and licenses that, you won't run into any issues later. So that's about it.
Okay. Thank you, Artem. Fred, what do you have to say?
You and I and our guests are always bitching about things that we can't fix, like labor and food costs and things like that. Well, here's something that you can fix, so do it.
Yeah. And if you really think about it, oh man, he said I make my restaurant will make $100 a month. What does that mean? What does that mean if you're not risking a fine? You're not risking a fine. You're not risking closure of your restaurant. And at worst, if he's giving you $100 to pick up that grease, you figure you have to pay that amount.
And you know what, Larry, too, on a more basic note, there's a good chance that if you're working with somebody on a program like this, that you are not going to have to worry about somebody sending back an order of French fries because they're cold, because the chances are you understand how your oil is performing and what impact it's having on your menu as well. So I think there's more here than just bottom line savings as well.
Right. Well, if you're interested, go to Artem's website, fill out the form, and he'll give you a call. Oh,
For sure.
Well, this has been a great show, and really, as usual, I only have two things to say. Everybody, stay positive, test negative, and we'll see you next week. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you, fellas.